Back with another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star and the Brazilian Bugle, as he was doing some moonlighting last time we came to you. He is back. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB here in Kansas City, and we've got a lot to cover. First of all, Sam's trip to Brazil. Good, bad, yay, nay. Should everybody have gone? Did we miss the boat by not going to Brazil? We'll cover that real quick. How worried should Chiefs fans be about that performance against the Chargers? What happens to this offense now that Xavier Worthy is sidelined? What happened to the offensive line? Where was the running game? Can Patrick Mahomes put this offense on his back and carry it through all of this adversity yet again? Is this the same mediocre pass rush we saw last year? A lot of hope that it was going to be better. It looked a lot better in this one. Did we see how much they're going to miss Justin Reid? What about surviving this brutal 4-game stretch? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. And how about it? Let's start with the travel. Sam McDowell, you traveled down to Sao Paulo, Brazil to see this game. First of all, you talked about a couple-hour bus ride from the airport to the practice field, couple hours to the hotel, couple hours to the game. Big city, fourth largest in the world. Allegedly a lot of traffic. Did it all live up to what you heard it was going to be?
Yeah, those couple hours got us like halfway there to the game. So it was just it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And by that, I mean, I won't be making it twice.
Okay. Okay. So those of us that gave a little thought to, hey, you know what? When are they going to be in Brazil? We got to give this a shot. And then didn't go and went, man, I wonder if I'm going to regret this. The game made us feel better for not going down there. I'll say that. There's nothing worse than traveling and the game sucking. I went up to Lambeau Field. That sucked. I would have been pretty frustrated, but you're telling me it was not an easy get to for those that went down there.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone knows that when you travel internationally, it's going to be long flights. So that part's the expectation. And I had heard a lot about the traffic and expecting that, but it's hard to brace yourself to go 3.5 hours in a bus just to travel 15 miles. So that was a little brutal just to get to work that night. But the stadium itself was actually surprisingly gorgeous. And the atmosphere there was great. They always are at these international games. There's a constant buzz at the stadium. I didn't think it was quite what Azteca was in Mexico City when the Chiefs played the Chargers there a few years back. I thought that was a different level, but it's still, you can recognize that people are seeing NFL football in person for the first time. So there's certainly a cool element of that, but I would just say that the game itself was the highlight of the trip and not a lot of other highlights outside of that.
So let me ask you this. If they give another international location that's not Europe, they've talked about Australia, they're talking about, they're talking about just pretty much anything. Yeah. Would you be signing up to go?
I don't think I would go back to Brazil, but that's not all my decision. I do have bosses who make these decisions as well. I mean, look, this is part of the reality for the Chiefs now. Is that it is not just that. I mean, we've talked about the way that they're the primetime feature for the NFL now, but that includes not just going internationally, but often it includes being one of the guinea pigs for a lot of these trips. There hadn't been many games in Brazil, particularly Frankfurt, before the Chiefs went. There'd only been one game in Sao Paulo before the Chiefs went. And, I know they're going to be in the mix for as many games as they can, even next year. Now, next year, just like this year, the Chargers took them. Another team would have to take one of their home games because the Chiefs have an extra road game next year, not an extra home game. So in 2 years from now, I think it's almost a lock that the Chiefs will be playing internationally somewhere.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. By the way, Temecula says, but how is the scenery?
I don't know that I'm the best judge for that, just because the bus ride was the extent of the scenery that I saw. Look, we didn't. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get out a ton. There wasn't just. I mean, the travel is so extensive, and the workday is 3.5 hours plus the normal workday, so there's not a ton of time there. I guess I would say about what you would expect. I wasn't surprised by the scenery as we looked out the window.
Okay. Yeah. Well played, Sam. Let's start with the football game, Jeff. How worried should Chiefs fans be about what happened against the Chargers? I kind of phrased it. Is this just first game mistakes piled up on them? Everybody has a tough day, or signs of real problems?
Well, as I said throughout the offseason, left tackle wasn't the only problem with the Chiefs last year, and finding a possible solution was not going to make everything better. And look, the Chiefs are going to be a playoff team. They're going to compete for the AFC West. Winning the AFC, winning a championship, that looked a lot harder based on what you saw in that game. And there's plenty of time to try to figure this out and try to fix it. And they've been known for finding ways to remedy their problems, regardless of how they look. But yeah, they've got problems that aren't easily fixed. Some of these problems are just personnel. Some of them are things that have been coming, some of it's age. But when I stopped watching that game, the first thing I thought was that team looks a lot like the team that got beat by the Eagles in February. And that should be troubling.
Yeah, that was remarkably. I thought this looks just like the team that had its offensive struggles last year. Everything seems hard. Every yard seems to be, when they were cooking, when they're rolling, it looks easy. Looks like pitch and catch. Looks like what the Chargers looked like against them. And offensively, it reminded me a lot of last year, Sam. It just was a grind every single yard. There were a couple of plays here and there that eventually came about, but and there's a couple others. I was watching it back again, and why are you doing a Xavier Worthy running towards the quarterback, handing him the ball to turn around and run the other direction with a running play that essentially just sets him up as a running back and running behind the offensive line? I mean, purely a running back. There's no threat of he comes towards the quarterback and then just takes the ball and turns around and runs back away from the quarterback. But behind the line, what about 170 pounds? And that little move says you're going to get anyone up. It almost seemed like some of the flash they had early was just flash for flash's sake. I didn't understand where they were trying to get the defense off balance or go in the wrong direction. So even what could be perceived as creativity seemed to have no application for what would be making a better play.
Yeah, I just thought everything looked really difficult offensively. Like everything looked like a struggle, but it's really hard for me to get back past the big picture of it, which is that I think they should be more embarrassed by this game than the Eagles game. And it's because they came out flat. And Andy Reid, a head coach who never calls out players, called out his players for not coming out with more emotion and intensity in the game. And usually, even when Andy Reid says, that's something I got to do, you got to look at me first. Usually when he says that, he also leads with that. That was the afterthought of his message, was he mentioned the fact that there's got to be more emotion. And then he said, that's my responsibility first. And I think it was a telling moment from Andy Reid after the game, because to me, this team talked all offseason about the fact that it was motivated by that Super Bowl. You've got a national TV game. It's on YouTube. The NFL is clearly trying to set some sort of viewership record. It's the opener of the season. It's against a divisional rival. How do you come out flat for that game? And it's not just flat on the field, because I think you potentially could excuse that as this long travel. They weren't there for that long. Okay, maybe they should have adjusted their trip. Andy Reid mentioned there wasn't much chatter on the sideline either, that he didn't feel the emotion on the sideline either. And I just think if you're a Chiefs fan, that's what you should be most upset about, because that's not even that's the bare minimum requirement is your best effort. And I didn't think that the Chargers got the Chiefs' best effort in the game.
Team that's tired, worn out, played too many games, the season's starting up too soon. Jeff, what do you attribute to a team coming out flat in an opener like this?
I think flat's always is always bullshit to me. To me, it's like, it sounds like it's such an easy cop out. Like it's I think,
Jeff, tell us what you really think.
Yeah, I just like it's always like, it's hard to believe. Like Sam just said, like you can't be up for the season opener, all these factors, your revenge tour, the Chargers. And it's just like I think they were out coached first and foremost. That's where you start, not the energy part of it. But now you're seeing the reality of Andy Reid no longer holds a coaching advantage over the AFC West. These other guys are smart too. They can put together game plans, and I thought they got out coached on offense, on defense. They made a great play on special teams before halftime to get a kickoff, field goal off, but that was probably the coaching highlight of the game for them. And so I'll start there. But I think more so than anything, it's just this team. We talk about pro football teams sometimes like it's college football, where you have Alabama's always going to be great, or Penn State, or Texas, whoever, Oklahoma, Ohio State. In reality, it probably wasn't as hyped up on the sideline, because look who's on the sidelines. Guys like Ashton Gelati and Omar Norman Lott and Brashard Smith, guys that haven't been around very long. Kinley Sua-Mata'ia, Justin Simmons. Like, you got a lot of guys on the sideline who haven't played in NFL games or haven't been a part of this. And so I've always felt, and I think someone said in the chat area, it's like this roster, like every great roster, sooner or later gets diminished by age, by personnel changes. All these things take a factor. And today, they're trying to find out who they are this year. The team that lost to Philadelphia last year is gone. The one that won 2 in a row is gone. This is this year's team. And they got to figure out how to win with this game, with this team.
You don't think that emotion plays any factor whatsoever in an NFL game?
I think it plays a factor. I'm saying the guys who were there aren't bringing the same level of emotion that you would have had from the guys who'd been around 2 years ago.
I agree with that. And that's why I think the flat thing is a real thing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes decided at one point he needed to lower his shoulder and bowl over a defensive back, not to get an extra yard, not even to get an extra inch on that play. He decided purely to do that because his team wasn't playing with emotion. That's what playing with emotion looks like, is that specific play. I didn't see the Chiefs have that at all in the first half. Like, I didn't see what was their best example of that in the first half
of playing with emotion.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an example of it, but I would say that I kind of agree with Jeff on the bullshit call. And we just went over.
In what way?
Because like I get tired, like in baseball, when everyone's like, "Oh, this team, like there's no emotion." It's like, well, they all strike out and ground into double plays.
Baseball's not a contact sport.
It's not, but I still think what gets people fired up. What gets people fired up is when a guy storms off the edge, comes clean, and blows up the other team's quarterback. Everybody goes nuts. Yeah. What gets people fired up? When a running back runs through 3 guys and trucks a DB and barrels, for 42 yards. Yes. When the flea flicker leaves a guy wide open and you hit him over the top. They did nothing well. Nothing. And I don't. What are you supposed to do? Yeah. Hell yeah, 3 and out. Here we go. Yeah, let's get down and cover that punt. I mean, I think they got their ass so kicked immediately in that. And like I said, I was looking at it. I left it upstairs, but I can't remember the second play was the Xavier Worthy. Like I said, this little just come back and hand him the ball and then run the other direction. I'm like, put the ball in Kareem Hunter, Isaiah Pacheco's hands if you're just going to run what amounts to being a stretch play. I don't understand what they were doing. And then they turn around and the next play is the crossing route that takes Xavier Worthy out of the game. That took all kinds of wind out of their sails because they already know Rashee Rice is out. Now they lose Xavier Worthy, and it's like, well, here we go again. So I mean, yes, I think emotion, you do need to play with emotion, Sam. I don't doubt you at all with that. I'm in total agreement with that. But I don't think you can just say, here we go, let's get all fired up. You can do that and dance around in the tunnel and everything. But once the game goes, you got to do something. You got to succeed somewhere for everybody to come running up. They got driven right down the field by the Chargers and did nothing on offense for like 25 minutes. I mean,
I don't disagree with that. First of all, I think this is a chicken versus the egg thing too. I don't think that them playing bad just necessarily means that they were all fired up and then they started playing bad. But also, if you say that the Xavier Worthy injury took the wind out of the sails, that's saying that they were flat then at that point. And I don't think you have to have a 50-yard play to play inspired football. Like you have
to have some kind of success. What successful play did they have?
I'm trying to explain that here. Yeah. Win at the line of scrimmage for a play.
Yes, we're on the same page.
Pancake somebody at the line of scrimmage. You don't have to win a 50-yard play. Like one of the 5 offensive linemen do something. I thought it was telling that when Patrick Mahomes bowled over that guy, you know how many guys came over to him? One. One. Trey Smith came over to him and was excited about that. Even when you had the moments to show some fight and to show some energy, they didn't do it in that game.
And that's to your point, Sam. That's kind of what I'm saying. Emotion matters, but you have to have people driving the emotion. And this team right now is going through a transition where the guys who typically drove it aren't really doing a whole lot. Travis Kelce didn't do a whole lot in that game.
Yeah.
Chris Jones didn't do a whole lot in that game. And then once you get past that, who are the guys you're looking to really set the tone for you, aside from Mahomes? I remember something Ron Rivera said to me when the Panthers went 15-1 and made the Super Bowl and lost to Denver. And the next year I saw him in training camp, and I said, "What do you think of this group?" He's like, "I think a lot of guys have to learn that you don't get to go to the Super Bowl just because you went last year." And so we got a lot of guys who think they're just going to go because they're here. And I think this team probably has a lot of guys that they're going to win championships because they're on the Chiefs. It doesn't work that way.
And I want to highlight what Sam said, because I think Ben says, look, they have 3 of the highest paid offensive linemen at their position, a first and second rounder on the line, and they got their ass kicked. Yes. I mean, what's to do? And to Jeff's point, if Travis Kelce catches a couple of first downs, he jumps up, points the ball. He's not getting any catches. He's either not getting open or they can't scheme him open. Whatever the problem is, the guys that would be fired up, Hollywood Brown's dropping the ball. He was awful. He had one definitive drop and another one. I know he ended up having some pretty good stats as they tried to dig back into it, and I'm encouraged by that and hope that he comes around. But, I tweeted out, stop Hollywood my ass, like Chino Brown, Anaheim Brown, Stockton Brown. There's no Hollywood here. He had that diving play where it would have been a great catch, but it went right through his hands almost for an interception. I mean, there just wasn't anything to get fired up about. And I think we're on the same page, Sam. It's just.
I think we're talking the same thing.
Yeah, I think we are too. I just think there's moments to create your own energy without having a first down. I think on a running play, you win at the line of scrimmage for one. There's a lot of opportunities to win at the line of scrimmage, a lot more than there are to bust that 50-yard play, to get a sack. I mean, Ashton Gelati's first play of the game, he busts into the backfield. And that moment should be something that inspires some emotion in the game. Like, those are the moments I'm talking about more than, hey, get a first down and go signal as hard as you can and dance after the play. I'm talking about win at the line of scrimmage. It's a physical game. Win that physical battle at some point.
Yeah, I think it's clearly there was not enough success, and there was not enough emotion, and you figure out which one begets the other.
Yeah,
right. Like they got to do it one way or the other. I agree with that. Talk about what they do at wide receiver after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, where are they going at wide receiver now? Xavier Worthy goes down. He was clearly a big point of the offense. We saw Juju Smith-Schuster step in there. What's the plan now, Jeff?
Good question. I really don't know what it is. I know what the plan is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a successful plan. It's a lot of Hollywood Brown, a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster, a lot of Tyquan Thornton. And I'm with you. I thought Hollywood Brown was mediocre at best. I mean, he ended up with almost 100 yards, but most of that came on a broken play. Half of that came on a broken play at the end of the game that Mahomes really manufactured. So I don't know. I don't trust him to have a ton of targets and really be that effective. I think Juju is old and injury prone as well. And Tyquan Thornton, to have this kind of responsibility thrust upon him in this kind of role, I like him as a 4th or 5th receiver. I don't like him as the 3rd option. And I don't know what Travis has left. Actually, I do know. I think we saw some of that, and it's probably not a whole lot. So I think you're going to see a lot of what we saw last year, a lot of trying to manufacture stuff, a lot of short passes, a lot of Pacheco and Kareem Hunt try to control the game. But I don't think they have an easy answer to fix what left the building with Xavier Worthy, who looked like, I mean, I know we'll probably get into some of the details of what happened to him, but the body language was pretty rough. He looked like a guy who'd been driving next to Rashee Rice.
Yeah. I would go so far.
Come on. Could you have said that off air?
Listen, I think the other thing that's scary to me, Sam, is the offense is back to being the dink and dunk, but it's the dink and dunk that's getting the ball to guys in traffic. Like Juju Smith-Schuster seemingly can play 3 or 4 games, and then the knee starts to become an issue. He's taking a lot of hits, big hits. Like other teams are able to get their wide receiver open, catch the ball, and run, and then they get brought down on an ankle tackle. The Chiefs guys are getting wrecked. Like Juju's taking 4 and 5 hits. I mean, I love the toughness and fighting. And, he had the 1st and 20 catch for 16 yards where he caught it at about 7 yards and just pinballed his way through guys for 9 more yards to get down and set up what ultimately ended up being a field goal down there. I mean, you love the toughness and everything, but back to the nothing comes easy. And everybody takes a lot of shots, and Hollywood Brown's not going to hold up under that. I don't think Juju Smith-Schuster's going to hold up under that. Like, they don't get anybody wide open the way Ladd McConkey was standing there with no one within 8 feet of him. I mean,
well, you get hit when you're covered. So it's a product of not creating a lot of separation. I mean, I think this Xavier Worthy absence is huge for the Chiefs. And I think based on the nature of his injury, that the odds of him playing like in the playoffs, either because he has the surgery or because he doesn't, you try and bring him back, and then like the odds he holds up through the playoffs, I think are less than 50-50. Yeah. And so like, I think we're going to be having this conversation of what do you do without Xavier Worthy? Like, to me, this isn't a 4-week question. This could potentially be a season question of what do you do without this guy? And they don't have a replacement for him on the roster. And that's not the deep threat stuff. Like, I've seen some people say, well, Tyquan Thornton runs deep. Xavier Worthy was not their deep threat last year. He was their Rashee Rice replacement last year. 53 of his 59 catches were within 10 yards line of scrimmage or behind it. Like, he was the guy who could get yards after the catch. There are 2 guys who can create stuff after the catch, which is what their entire offense is predicated on, are gone from the offense now. And what really surprised me about their reaction in game, and let's actually excuse the Chiefs in one area. They built an entire game plan expecting to have Xavier Worthy. And guys get hurt during the game. They know guys get hurt during the game. But the first series is a lot to have a completely different game plan that you weren't anticipating going into it. But what did surprise me was their personnel usage in the game. Last year, they used 11 personnel, which is only one running back, one tight end, 3 wide receivers. They used that on less than half the snaps. 49% of the snaps, they used 11 personnel. Against the Chargers in week 1, 70% of the snaps. So they used more receivers by a large margin than they did at any point last year, despite not having Rashee Rice and despite not having Xavier Worthy. So to me, I think a lot of this conversation is going to be, can Juju Smith-Schuster fill in? Can Jalen Royals fill in if he's going to play this week? To me, I wouldn't look to the wide receiver room. I'd say I'm getting my tight ends on the field more, and I'm going to try and win there. Try to win at the line of scrimmage more. Try and put Noah Gray into matchups, Robert Cummings into matchups, and we've got the running game on the list. Soren, you mentioned it, but the running game was non-existent.
Right.
One of the reasons it's non-existent is you didn't play your tight ends that much in the game. You played your wide receivers a lot in that game.
Yeah. Did they make a mistake with the Worthy pick? I mean, is this, I know it's just the one injury, but this was the knock on it. It's not just the fact that he was hurt, right? It's the fact that he was hurt and it wasn't even an act of aggression. He was hurt running into his own player. Like, what happens when he comes across the middle and some linebackers waiting for him? That's going to be devastation, right? Like this is why people said you don't draft him. This is why he was there when he was. After him, that Ricky Pearsall went. Xavier Leggett has been with Carolina, but he's a bigger receiver. Keon Coleman had a 100-yard day against the Baltimore Ravens at pick 33, and Ladd McConkey went 34. I mean, there were other bigger receivers. There seems to be this fascination. And people, you can pick on Brett Veach. I'm pretty sure Brett Veach shops on the aisle that Andy Reid tells him to.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm wondering if Andy Reid, we're watching these other teams and we can incorporate the run game into this conversation right now. I'm watching, last night the Vikings get back into a game with their quarterback under center and platooning 2 running backs, Jordan Mason coming in and running physically, and popping runs, and then play action and bootleg off of those runs, getting downhill with the running game. And the Chiefs just don't seem willing, to your point, Sam, about the tight ends. They don't seem willing to do that. I mean, I like Sam's idea. Let's go with more tight ends. Let's play more physical. Let's get downhill. Let's get the offensive line firing off. That, to me, is what the Vikings are doing. It's what that whole Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay crew does. And they're not borrowing any of that.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to real quick cut in here, Jeff, because I was going to say that just one of the reasons I mentioned the tight end stuff is they were more effective running that stuff than most teams in the league were. Like their EPA rank, their expected points added per play ranked last year using 2 tight end sets was 4th in the NFL last year. They averaged a better EPA per pass using 2 tight ends than they did using only 1 tight end. And they added double the EPA per rush using 2 tight ends compared to 1. Like this, I'm suggesting this because this was successful for them last year. And because I don't think they have the personnel to put 3 wide receivers on the field that frequently.
Yeah. Well, and we've had this conversation, last few weeks about Chiefs offense becoming elite again and throwing the football down the field. And I keep making the same argument that if elite offenses either have great talent or they have great running games, and if you have both, then you are like electric. And so what you're saying is exactly right, Soren. You watch the Ravens and the Bills play on Sunday night. Derrick Henry is a big part of Lamar Jackson's success. James Cook, you throw him a screen pass and he's running 55 yards with it. It's a big part of it. Keon Coleman, people were laughing at me when I was saying he's a better player than Xavier Worthy last year. And you're seeing the evolution, the maturation of him. You see what he looks like with year 2 under his belt. Because
let's give him more than 1 game, though, right?
Yeah, well, that's more than Worthy got. Yeah, Worthy left with his arm in a sling.
I mean, that is part of it. Your availability is a big part of your ability, and
absolutely.
That was the knock.
Keon Coleman missed a lot of games last year too.
Fair. I mean, but that was the. But now, I come back to it. It's not just that he's hurt. It's he got hurt just running into his own guy. There was no malice intended, and it's knocked him out long term. This is why people said it's a problem to draft this guy. And so I agree. And listen. It's not about who gets 1 more yard than the other between Keon Coleman and Xavier Worthy. Yes, give me both would be what Matt Nagy would say, what Andy Reid would say. The problem is that they seem to like more of the Xavier Worthies, right? Like, yeah, I think you need the guys that you can count on that can play. The Lad McConkey's, Keon Coleman if he's going to be healthy, but injuries are a problem for everybody. But like that's what makes it so puzzling. You have Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, right? You have two guys that are brittle, right? And by the way, I want to throw in that Rashee Rice. I had a personnel guy tell me he was off their board. They were not going to draft him. So on top of you taking injured players, you're drafting at-risk character flag players. And that's how you find yourself now sitting here in this situation. It's like they got rewarded for making it work with Tyreek Hill. And they're like, whoa, this is where we talk about believing your own BS. It's like, well, we can take any at-risk player and it'll just work because it worked with Tyreek Hill. And I think they're stacking up question marks, Jeff. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not. And I was going to follow up on that by saying I hear what Sam's saying. I don't want to sit here and coronate Keon Coleman right now, but I will say that the Bills had a plan for him that was sensible to what he is. The Chiefs are trying to turn Xavier Worthy into something that they hope he can become. When you start with 170 pounds, there's a risk involved in that. When you start with 6'4", 220, you kind of know what he is. And then where he fits into, which is why I think Keon Coleman looks more comfortable with what he's doing in Buffalo. But the reality is, you're right. The Chiefs have gotten away with some of this stuff because they've had Travis Kelce, because they've had Tyreek Hill. And you didn't, the McCole Hardman not working out didn't become a big deal, or Kadarius Toney didn't become a big deal, or the Marquez Valdez-Scantling can do everything in the route tree didn't become a big deal, because you only need those guys to do 2 or 3 things over the course of a season to make an impact. With Worthy, you're asking him to do a lot more. If it doesn't work out, it really kills you. And the same is true of Hollywood Brown. These high hopes for him. I don't see him all of a sudden becoming this player who was going to do great things and make up for the loss of Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice, because he's not built that way. But they see the speed, and they think the speed generates everything else. And I think that's foolish thinking.
Yeah, I think it's fair. How about the offensive line? As we bring up the running game, I mean, they all, for PFF, and they're not the end-all be-all, but they're at least given a shot at theoretically being unbiased in grading. 11th best center was Creed Humphrey. The guards, Kingsley Suamataia outranked Trey Smith like 37th to 38th amongst guards. The tackles were even lower, and Jawan Taylor was below Josh Simmons. None of them graded well. Is this an issue with Andy Heck? Is this an issue with scheme? Is it outdated running principles? Is it bad running backs that just, hey, there's enough of a push there, but they can't find the holes, or they can't push through arm tackle? Like, what do you make of the combination of a lack of consistent production, Sam, and an inability to really move the line of scrimmage and be effective in the run game?
Yeah, I didn't think that the offensive line played well, but I actually think our opinion of the offensive line is secondary to what Andy Reid and Matt Nagy showed us during that game. They showed us from the jump that they didn't have confidence in the offensive line to hold up, because for all this talk about the deep pass and everything, and you might say they threw 4 of them, they completed 2 of them, that's an improvement. But nobody in the NFL, no quarterback in the NFL threw more quick throws last week than Patrick Mahomes did. And so that is an offensive coordinator and a head coach telling us they think they need to get rid of the ball quickly. So like I said, we consider and dissect all 5 offensive linemen, and none of them I think are going to look great. I think Creed played the best of the 5, but none of them should feel great about that film afterwards. And I don't think any of us are going to give out A grades or even potentially B grades to any of those 5. But Andy Reid and Matt Nagy's game plan from the start told us they thought they needed to get rid of the ball quickly. Those deep throws replaced their intermediate passing game. It didn't replace their short passing game when they're behind the line of scrimmage passing game.
Yeah. What do you see with the offensive line right now, Jeff?
Same thing as Sam. I mean, they weren't great, but they also were put in a position where they weren't going to look all that great, right? I mean, if you don't have, and this is part of the chicken and egg thing too. The running game lacks a really good running back. And so it's very hard for the offensive line to play well when the guy behind you is not really all that explosive or electric with the ball in his hands. So that's a factor. 2, you lose Xavier Worthy, so your passing game changes, and Chargers are very, obviously see the Chiefs a lot, so they're aware of what they can do, or what the Chiefs are going to try to do against them as far as attacking them offensively. So that's a factor. And then Look, I felt like, and you saw it at the end of the game with the play that Mahomes got flushed and he threw up to Hollywood Brown when Kingsley Suamataia was toasted by Khalil Mack. And so I think they were very aware of teams are going to try to create one-on-one matchups. They're going to try to play games with these guys on the left side, and we have to be mindful of that. And so I think that makes them a little more conservative in how they play. And I didn't even get to Jawan Taylor. I think Jawan Taylor is probably the biggest story on the offensive line because he's reaching a point now where it's like, is he really going to start 17 games for this team? Because if he is,
weren't you surprised he finished? Weren't you guys surprised he finished the game?
Yeah, I can't see it. Yeah,
I was. I did a hit with ESPN Radio afterwards, and I said, they've benched tackles in games before.
Yes.
I was really surprised that they didn't bench him.
They benched him in game,
and because they've got a $15 million replacement sitting on the sideline. Like where did the patience come from? Suddenly to keep sitting through what has been the same recurring problem. And I'll be honest with you, he could have been called for it numerous times before. It's like he got away with a little and he kept getting away, trying for more and more and more. And they finally threw it. I mean, I watching the game back, I'm like, well, they could have called it. It would have been ticky-tack, but they could have called him there. Could have called him there. Then I'm like, well, he's right before he finally got called. He was just as offsides the time before, and they didn't call it. And so, I don't know. I don't get it.
They first of all, I did watch. The benefit of the Chiefs playing Fridays, I get to watch all the other NFL games, and I watched a lot of NFL on Sunday. Every game has that.
Yes,
I do think that the NFL needs to decide how they're going to call it, if they're going to call it, in what manner they're going to call it, and just be consistent on it because it's called completely differently in one game compared to the next. And to your point, Soren, it's called completely differently in game.
Yeah,
he was doing it before it was called. And it wasn't like a one-time thing where, okay, they must have warned him on that play. It was multiple times. And then all of a sudden it's called. I don't know how they decide when they're going to call that. But, Stern, you brought up another thing that I think is one of my takeaways from week one. I want to say this is not a takeaway for the entire season, what's going to be a 17-game year. But Jalen Moore was paid $15 million and didn't play. Christian Fulton was paid $10 million and hardly played in the game. And they both were backups to players who struggled in the game. And then you've got the guys that they gave extensions to in the game. George Karlaftis was non-existent in the game. Trey Smith did not have his best game in that game. And so I think you look, and Nick Bolton gave up five catches and 5 times he was targeted. All 5 were caught. Like, the Chiefs gave out some money this offseason. That money's got to perform. Like, this roster is now built to where those guys have to perform. Those guys were no-shows in week one, and that can't be the case for the whole season.
Yeah, that's where I was going with the offensive line. There's such a massive investment in the offensive line. It can't be okay. It has to dominate, right? They have to go out and knock people off the ball when they run. They have to give the quarterback time, or it doesn't work. Right? Like, you got one guy in the defensive line. Chris Jones has got to get home. Chris Jones can't screw up the last play. Like, the people who are making the money have to come to play. If they don't, there's no looking around going, well, who's why didn't the $500,000 second-year player step up? Wrong.
Exactly, because this is a team that can't afford to pay that many guys. Yeah. You're paying Chris Jones at the highest level. You're paying Smith at the highest level. You're paying Patrick Mahomes at the highest level. Like, when you pay guys like that, you don't have a lot of other plan B options. Like, you're relying on those guys to perform week in and week out. And like I said, they were absent in week one.
Yeah, it was very, very noticeable that the big boys didn't come to play. And that will be a problem as they move forward. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about whether or not Patrick Mahomes can load this team up on his back, get into the pass rush after you hear from our friends at Italian Delight. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. If you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. Jeff, can he just load him up, put him on his back? We're talking about all the things that aren't going well. Can you just dump it all? He was brilliant, certainly as the game got going.
They can try, and he'll have moments where he will do that like he did in this game, but you're not going to win a ton of games trying to do that. And no matter how great he is, that's a lot to ask for anybody because he can't make up for some of the things that are happening here. And they're facing too many teams that are talented and well coached, starting with the team that's coming in this week. I mean, I don't think that's what their goal is or their mindset is. And I think he'll try to do it. But if he gets into a place where he's trying to do that, like more mistakes will follow. I think the lesson to be taken away from this right now is that when you do, I'd say diminish, maybe ignore some things that we think are important, like the running back or like the defensive line, or as Sam said, the money you pay to certain guys and don't pay to others, like it can hurt you at some point once your talent gets to a certain level. And so by no means do I think that she should be written off and discarded as, okay, it's the glory days are over. But I do think they are as even with everybody else as they've ever been during the Patrick Mahomes era. And that means he just can't lift this thing up by himself. He needs other guys to step up and do their part.
You fearing Pat tries to do too much, Sam?
I think he's in a spot where he has to. And I think it's in a spot to where he actually should be taking more risks because it's harder and harder to figure out how the offense is going to move the ball without Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. I think much of our offensive conversation needs to be put under the context that I believe stuff changes in week 7 when Rashee Rice comes back. He is, without a doubt, the best weapon they have offensively, and they're playing without him for the first 6 weeks. But initially that picture also included Xavier Worthy, and now it doesn't. So like you just take these next 5 weeks, which is a significant part of a football season. It's not like just because you think they're going to be good in week 7, they can say, okay, but 38% of the season you can just toss aside and play like crap. Like you still gotta win some games here. And the problem is, the way Jeff had phrased this question is, can Mahomes put this offense on his back? He did. And they still lost the game.
Yep.
I mean, he was terrific in the second half. Like that was the difference in the Super Bowl. If you want to find out, like, okay, it looked a lot like the Super Bowl, except Patrick Mahomes played incredible football for a whole half of this game, and it still wasn't enough. And to me, a lot of the other stuff we've talked about falls into why that's a concern, that he played well, but these still things didn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, I think one, like Travis Kelce could go ahead and run, right, on a crossing route as opposed to jog. I mean, I think that's one of the things, like you talk about the emotion, like I'm sure Travis thought he was kind of finding a place in the zone, but you could see Mahomes was like, he even said, come on. Like you could read his lips, like why are you not coming across at full speed? And, he's trying to lead him. I think the more he has to do, the more he's going to be looking around at people and start getting frustrated. And I think it'll be real interesting to see where the coaching staff goes. Do they come over and tell Pat he needs to calm down, or does Andy go light up somebody that's not getting it done? Does Andy go light up Jawan Taylor for jumping off sides? Does he go light up Kingsley Suamatia for getting trucked at the line of scrimmage? Like, will he go support his quarterback, or will he just be like, come on now? Like, I do think it could be a really interesting dynamic, psychology of the sideline. You mentioned it, Sam. He's calling out the sideline when he does that, when he's putting that out there. Okay, well, how's he going to manage it differently? Like, is he just going to give us updates on in the post game about what it was, or is he going to go over there and inject himself? He is the head coach into getting the sideline right, getting the attitudes right, because we did see Mahomes finally snap in that Buffalo game a couple of years ago.
The spot where we've seen Andy Reid do that is with offensive linemen. Like he's got, I think, a higher standard for that group than he does most. We've seen him yell at Juwan Taylor on the field for having a penalty against New Orleans last year in the red zone. We've seen him lay into some offensive linemen in ways that I don't know that we've seen that with the receiver really mid-game. I mean, there was I guess the Christmas Day game where he tried to take Travis Kelce's helmet away after he threw it on the sideline, like basically. But you're right, Stran. I mean, it's not his go-to card that he tries to play a lot. But it's also why it's more effective when he does play. It's more effective when he does say it in post game. If you listen to Nick Sirianni have the post game that Andy Reid had, I don't think you'd think much of it. When you've heard Andy Reid press conferences for this long, you think a lot of him mentioning the fact that he did not think the players played with much emotion.
Yeah. I think that's well said. You know, you think we're gonna see anything different, Jeff, from Andy?
Possibly. You know, it's still early in the process, but you know, I even look at how he came out after halftime. I know they were late coming out, and there was some weird. I've never seen them the way they were walking out. They were very deliberate, and when he got in front of him, it was kind of like I don't know if you noticed it, but it was kind of like he talked to him, and it was kind of like, "Let's go." You know, that's if you've seen Andy Reid for a long time, I have not seen that kind of body language from him in a long time in a moment like that.
Since you brought it up, like it was clear that Jim Harbaugh's like, are we doing this or what? Yeah. Like, where are they? That the Chiefs were late, at least in Jim Harbaugh's mind.
They were late. So like on the field, for example, there was smoke everywhere from the halftime show. And so they paused the clock that was winding down to 0 at halftime for probably 1 to 2 minutes or something before the smoke cleared, because the clock at the time only had like a minute and a half left. So they actually had extra time at halftime, and then the clock expires and the Chiefs aren't on the field. And usually they come out a little bit early so you can have the quarterback throw some passes, like, you know, have guys stretch a little bit, and they weren't on the field. I don't know if you guys heard me ask Andy about that on Monday during his Zoom call, and I found his answer to be a little confusing, to be honest. And I don't know. I think I was obviously listening to the telecast at the time, but I'd heard that the telecast tried to explain it in some manner that the Chiefs were alerted late or something about the second half starting.
Yeah, what did Andy say? I didn't hear that comment.
I'm trying. Let me see if I can find his.
Because while you're looking for that, let me say this. You know, it was weird because his security guy was out there, and he was like, "Come on," to Andy, and Andy was like, "Hey, settle down." Right. Remember who you work for, me. Right.
He just said, I think it probably went on a little longer than what we were given, so that was it. And I don't understand what that.
Yeah. He was making a statement, like the way he clearly was talking to them in the locker room about something, and when he came out, he's like, "I'm not done talking yet," and so we're gonna get this thing figured out. He was pissed, and
I agree.
I think that was so. To your point, to what you're asking me, Soren, yeah, I do think he's probably gonna ratchet up something as far as intensity or urgency goes this week.
Yeah. Okay. Pass rush, same old. See it getting any better, Jeff? I mean, what did you see from what we saw with the lack of
look that way to me? I mean, we keep talking about this like, hey, my bold daring prediction was Chris Jones career low sack, so I'm feeling pretty good about it right now. I like my odds.
Under 2?
Yeah. We do remember the conversation where he was kind of thinking it was like 5 or 6, and 2, he forgot about the rookie year part.
That's right.
So to put it into context of what he meant, but it was ugly for a while. What do they end up with? They got 2 out of Drew Tranquill, and they got 1 out of George Karlaftis.
George Karlaftis was a technicality. It was a half-yard play, a scramble. I mean, that's
pushed out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage, which technically is a sack. I agree.
Was it many of you there?
Well, you mean you say you never saw him?
I never saw him.
I don't know. I'm surprised that Ashton Gelati played 9 snaps in the game, because his first series, he breaks into the end zone when Justin Herbert drops back into the end zone. I just think you're in a spot where you're going to have to play the rookies and let them work out the kinks in the process, because Mike Dana's not giving you much. Amenahu didn't give you much. Now, this is a 1-game thing. But I'm just saying, in game, I think you can make that adjustment. I think it's too early to say that the pass rush isn't going to improve at all, because the one difference is you actually have a reason for hope this year. You've got 2 rookies that could potentially get better over the course of the season. Omar Norman Lott didn't play at all. Ashton Gelati, like I said, I thought he flashed a little bit. The snap, the workload needs to improve. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, of course, but I just think you've got a little bit of a reason to think it could be better than the spot they were in last year.
Yeah. It felt to me like the whole first half that they were in a run defense and they kept throwing it on him and he never came out of it. And because there was no creativity on any of the first down throws as far as what they were coming with. It looked like preseason defense, I mean, like up straight zone, straight rush, because we thought you were going to run. Go ahead, run the next play and we'll stuff it. Then we'll get creative when we get you to a long down and distance. And they went, no, we're not. We'll throw it all the way down the field on you. And then when they did give it to Marion Hampton, when they started getting closer, they didn't really do a great job stopping him either. And by the way, Mike Pennell was graded like the highest run stopper. Do you see this?
Yeah.
He was a wrecking crew for Cincinnati. This is like, I don't know what happened there, but something went horribly wrong with the little maneuver of keeping Pennell, waving goodbye to Noddy, then cutting Pennell and trading for Noddy. I don't know what that is, but no one can say with a straight face this was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll take a shot at it.
Okay.
My best explanation is that I think there was some concern about a 34-year-old defensive tackle holding up over 17 games and still being good in the playoffs. And I think that they might have assumed that he might come back, and the Bengals scooped him up. And so therefore he's playing week 1. You can't stash him until December and January. He's on another roster now.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of things. This is where we talk about, is it just an off day, or we'll get to that at the end, or they have real problems. We'll weigh in on our final conclusion here. Justin Reid, secondary. How much of it was Justin Reid, Jeff? I mean, I do agree with what Sam said. He's made a great point. They basically swapped out Justin Reid for Christian Fulton, and they didn't play Christian Fulton. I mean, that's the cap slot there. How much did the Chiefs miss Justin Reid in this game?
Oh, it was a huge factor. Safeties did not play well. The whole secondary didn't play well, for that matter. But I mean, when you don't have somebody back there who can stabilize, stop the bleeding, it becomes worse. And I think that was probably one of the benefits of having Justin Reid, that you could have somebody bring guys together. Let's do this, do that, blah blah blah. We'll get through it. I don't think there was much.
Get some emotion in the game. That's what you're saying.
Get some emotion. That's right. Another guy who's gone. But that stuff gets glossed over, and it gets forgotten when you have bigger stars and bigger concerns. And I think he was a factor. But they had a mediocre secondary last year, and it kept getting diminished because they were winning, and there were other factors, other things to look at. But yeah, it's to me the most powerful statement the Chargers made was that we're going to come out, we're going to throw it 34 times because we know we can. Not just because, hey, it's like you think we're going to run. They threw with the mindset of, we know we can make plays against your secondary. And so all these quarterbacks coming in, all these teams on the schedule now, trust me, are going to be thinking the same exact thing. And without a pass rush, now you got a really big problem. I think their biggest problem is bigger than Xavier Worthy. It's the defense overall.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when you look at the concern that has the chance to stick around the longest, it's the secondary. And specifically, and Soren, I mentioned this on your radio show today, but look, they really missed Justin Reid in that game. It was not the biggest absence that they had in that game. To me, the biggest issue they had in the game is how many times did I mention over the summer that this team gave up the second most slot yards in the league last year, and that's why the secondary struggled. They gave up the most first downs from the slot and the second most yards from routes that originated in the slot. And so what the Chargers do, they attack the slot over and over and over again, because the Chiefs came out guarding the slot the exact same way they did a year ago, which was putting Shamari Connor in the slot. They targeted him 6 times in the game. He gave up 6 completions. He gave up 118.8 rating. And I know that's a weird number to remember exactly, but that's actually the perfect rating you can have without a touchdown is 118.8. And that's the rating he allowed. The expected points added just from targets on those 6 plays was 11 points. Like, which was the 7th most in the league of any player. Like, they went after the slot and said, there's one play in the second quarter where it's 3rd and 7. Justin Herbert looks left at Ladd McConkey, wiggles his fingers. Ladd McConkey goes over to the right side, stops in the slot, 3rd and 7. As soon as he gets the snap, he just looks right his way, knows he's being guarded by Shamari Connor, and throws it, and it's an easy first down. To me, the Chiefs have like a personnel issue, and some of this is of their own creation, because the solution to this is sitting on their roster. 2 years ago, Trent McDuffie was the best slot cornerback in football. By choice, they moved him out wide to where he was only playing, once out of every 6 or so snaps in the slot a year ago. This game, he played 11 out of 65 snaps in the slot. I don't understand that. And I know that they say that Christian Fulton isn't maybe mentally ready as far as knowing the defense. Dave Merritt has told us that position.
Williams isn't.
Yes, you can play that position, but you've got 2 cornerbacks in your roster. You're telling me can't play a full workload right now with Noah Williams and Christian Fulton. And if that is the case, then put Christian Roland Wallace in the slot. Like, whatever you have to do, you cannot have that same personnel in the slot that you did a year ago. It burned you a year ago, and it's already burned you in week 1. And that fire is going to get hotter because now every team knows it in a way that they didn't at the onset of last year.
The big play by Quentin Johnston, where he runs, catches the ball and heads up the sideline. Shamari Connor's covering him, and I can't remember if it was a play action the other way, if they play action with the running back or what. He is crashing down the line.
Yeah, because the receiver comes behind the line.
Here comes Quentin Johnson behind the line, who is clearly his responsibility, because he does like a Wile E. Coyote stop and turns around and is 5 yards behind Quentin Johnson headed down the field, and he runs with him all the way down the field, and he ends up being a part of the tackle. But he was his responsibility at the line of scrimmage, and he is nowhere near him. And it was simple misdirection. Right? They didn't motion anyone around in 3 circles and something else. It was, we showed flow left, we came back and threw right, and Shamari Connor was nowhere to be found. It was the simplicity of the play was brilliant. And I think there's a little bit of like the Chiefs are getting caught in their own minutia. They're trying to be too smart for their own good on both sides of the ball. If you can't get your best football players on the field, you got to dumb down what you're doing.
I do think in that sense. This is a defensive scheme that you've called elite for 2 years running now. But I think look, the film is out on the Chiefs, and it's not about scheme. It's about what players you want to be throwing the football to, and it's the safeties and it's the linebackers. And when you look up their stats, like I said, Connor targeted 6 times, 6 receptions for 81 yards. Nick Bolton was targeted 5 times. When I say target, I mean the nearest defender on the play, because some of these are zone plays. But 5 times, he gave up 5 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Hicks gave up 4 out of 5 for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Like, they're targeting positions more than I think that they're targeting their own guys. But with the Chargers, it happened to marry, right? Because Ladd McConkey is a slot player. He's your best player. And to me, that's why I'm concerned about the Chiefs personnel. If you're not going to put McDuffie on that guy, you're never going to have a better opportunity to put him in the slot than you did in week 1 against that guy.
Let's combine the last 2. Brutal 4-game stretch coming up, or part of this is part of. What's the conclusion, Jeff? Bad night, big problems.
Oh, big problems. Big problem. Okay. The defense, the lack of weapons on offense now. The teams coming in. Look, Chargers played great. Eagles got a better quarterback, better running back, better receivers, better O-line. That defense is going to be a problem against them. The Ravens scored 40 points in 25 minutes. They lost the game, but they still were explosive as hell. That game is probably going to be a loss. You're looking at a team that's probably going to be 1-3 based on what I saw. Now, they might change my mind and surprise me. They've got that in them, certainly. But they're playing 2 of the 3 best teams in the league in the next 3 weeks. And those games look really hard to win for them right now.
Yeah. Sam?
I think it looks like they're playing the 2 best teams in football over the course of the next few weeks. And that's someone who thinks –
you like the Ravens ahead of the Bills? Ravens and Eagles ahead of the Bills?
I said before the year, I thought the Ravens were the better team. The Bills just had the best path to the number 1 seed.
Right.
And
Okay.
like
Just
I
want
thought,
to be clear what you're saying.
yeah. And like I thought the Ravens were going to beat the Bills in that game, but I thought it was a coin flip game. They'd probably win. But yeah, I just think that the Bills have their schedule is cake after this. But I guess I'll remind people that the Chiefs, to me, never looked worse than they did 2 years ago under Patrick Mahomes. They still won the Super Bowl. Like they figured it out late in the year. The reason that I think that I lean closer to having bigger concerns is Xavier Worthy's absence, coupled with already Rashee Rice being out. Where's this team going to be in 6 weeks? And that's not, to me, commentary on the fact that they can't get it figured out late in the season when Rashee Rice comes back, because I think they can. But how much damage has been done in the first 6 weeks by the time you get there? I agree with Jeff. I think they're going to lose 3 games by the time that Rashee Rice comes back. And there's a chance it could be more than that, in which case you're playing road football in January. And they've done that once. Like I said, 2 years ago, they won. Like they can use that path to win a Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean we should think it's an easier path.
No, and especially when you're like, okay, yeah, you get through the stretch. Well, and then it's at Jaguars, which they might be better. And then the Lions, maybe they're not as good as they were, but they're still going to be tough. Raiders, better team than they were. Commanders, at Bills, at Broncos. Colts, all of a sudden, Jeff, I heard you say you're picking the Colts to win the AFC South this morning on New Day. At the Cowboys, who certainly look, if the Eagles are as good as we think they are, the Cowboys playing them that close means they're not terrible. The Texans, the Chargers, at the Titans, Broncos, and Raiders. Where is the
backups are into the 6 weeks? Like I think we had a question on here for the 4 weeks. What about the 6 weeks without Rashee Rice? Where is this team's record after they're 0-1? They play the Eagles, Giants, Ravens, Jaguars, Lions through 6 weeks.
Right now, I think you're definitely, this is a bad game if you go anything over 3-3, and I think you're terrified right now if you're a Chiefs fan that it's 2-4.
Yeah, it's realistic. Yeah,
I think it's realistic. They go 2-4. I'd project 3-3.
I will say this. I remember 2 years ago the struggles, and when they struggled a couple more years. I remember
21 they started 3-4 maybe.
Yeah, and I remember Eric Eager saying that the Chiefs' only chance is for Patrick Mahomes to get white hot. I remember him on this podcast saying that for 2 or 3 weeks, and I never, and maybe it's because they don't have 2 or 3 other wins that I can be like, all right, settle down, it's just one game, and maybe I'm overreacting to it, but this feels the worst that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, this.
2 years ago, they had the best defense in the league, right? Yeah. 2 years ago, they had the best or second best, whatever it was.
And I think Sam makes a great point in calling me out, going, you've called this defense elite for the last 2 weeks. This is the scheme that you called elite for the last 2 years. That is a fair point. And I think these are smart people that are running the operation. And these are champions. The core of this team are championship caliber players. If anyone's going to turn it around, and maybe even turn it around this week, it'll be this team. But I do think they're vulnerable right now. Getting their ass kicked by the Eagles. Like, I don't remember how they come out that next year after getting their ass kicked by the Bucs. Did they erase the frustration right away or not? Like, it maybe that's what it is. It's like they've now put together 2 turds back to back, and so it feels like I felt bad about the club, and Chiefs fans have felt bad about the club.
That was the year they started 3-4. They beat the Browns, but remember they were down 29-20 in that fourth quarter.
Okay, and then they just rallied, and maybe that's how this is going to go. But I mean, they have been in a dark place before and rallied and went all the way to a conference championship game. So they deserve the right to fight their way out. We'll see if they're able to do it.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. All right, listen, you can always support the podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Our friends at Italian Delight, just about 3 minutes east on State Avenue from the racetrack, the first to bring, more than 50 years ago, to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City. It was our friends at Italian Delight. Order online right now. Our friends at Frontier Justice with locations in Edmonds, Oklahoma, all about the Metro. Frontier Justice has you covered. And Northland Injury Law. If you've been hurt in an accident, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. Voted number 1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. It's Northland Injury Law. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.